Welcome everyone to our special podcast today. And we're going to talk about the TKS Fall Sprint Challenge, which is basically a global challenge all across the Innovate program in TKS, in which we work with real problems that cutting edge companies are facing. And this time we worked with Google. Our prompt was, how can Google keep its employees informed to use an ever expanded product portfolio? I'm your host, Arnav, or you may call Batman, because let's be honest, who doesn't want to be Batman? I'm an Innovate student at TKS. Currently, I'm working on AI with security and encryption methods to make encryption system more secure. And today, we are talking about the whole journey of the TKS challenge with my fellow Innovate students. And today, joining with me, I have Achilles, Neoor, and Yash, who decided to pick the Google challenge. Welcome, everyone. So let's kick things up with a brief intro.
Yeah,
Yash, you can
sure.
go ahead. Yeah.
I'm Yash Lad. I'm an Innovate student, and I'm currently working with AI and how it can be used for personalization systems within user experience and game design. I chose this Google challenge because I felt really direct in terms of the people it was affecting, and I thought it was really cool that we can actually even work with Google in the first place. And I think it's a really cool opportunity to talk to everybody about their experiences with the challenge. Um, what about you, Achilles?
All right. So I am Achilles. I'm 15 from Greece, and I'm currently working on carbon tech. And the reason I chose the Google challenge is because I've always wanted to work with Google on something like this, which is a pressing issue for the company. And I was interested, like Yash, in hearing everybody's ideas and trying to work on my own.
I'm Neoor. I'm a content creator, and I'm also working on biological computing, mainly because I hate software engineering and would rather work on the bio side. And I chose the Google challenge because Google is sounding cool, obviously, but there was also another cool thing on the other side of Meta. I chose Google specifically because I thought the solution to it would be more fun, because Meta felt like it would have a pretty straightforward solution that wouldn't require much new technology. So
That's
Yeah,
super
just to
dope.
be clear, the
Yeah.
meta one was more to do with the human experience side. So how can Meta make what idea should Meta consider to make its services more child friendly? I think that was the prompt.
that was one of the big prompts.
So
Yeah.
I think a lot of
Yeah.
us, I think it would be pretty interesting to see why we each one of us choose the Google prompt before we start.
Yeah. So when you guys took the Google problem, what were your initial thoughts and expectations when you got first started with the challenge?
Honestly, for me at first, like, just to start off, I think a lot of people were confused with the prompt initially. So even like you've told us the prompt, but I think it's just like I thought even if the prompt is difficult, that means that we can just learn so much more from that experience, because there's a lot more to,
Mhm.
dissect, a lot more to learn. And that's one of the reasons why I chose it. And before we get started, I think the easier way to think about the problem statement is that how can we make salesmen constantly keep up to date and be thoroughly versed with all the constant updates that go on in the advertising space and just in general products within Google, so that they can do better in B2B sales, which is business to business sales.
Yeah, I this is like just a bunch of problems that they kind of like try to wrap up in a tiny neat bow. So it's kind of hard for like when I saw it, I thought it was a really intimidating problem challenge
Mhm.
because there's so many different facets to it. But I think at the core of it is how can we make sellers at Google who are selling to these big companies in the B2B in a B2B space better at doing that selling. So how can we
Mhm.
provide them the context to make them better at making these deals with these companies? And
Exactly.
the company size is kind of irrelevant here. It depends on how each team decides to tackle the challenge. But the core of it is how can we make the Google's Salesforce better at making money? I
Keep
think
in
that's
mind
the way that most people
they
interpret
have
the
over
challenge.
100K like members in their Salesforce. So
It's insane. Yeah, it's such a wide-reaching problem. Like, I agree with you there. It's really big.
That's the
Um,
interesting thing about this prompt. The reason it's open-ended, I think, is because Google wants to get a diverse array of answers. There's a lot of different
mhm.
approaches I've seen to coming up with a solution for this problem, and I'd love to hear what ideas everybody came up with to solve this issue specifically.
So me and Yash, we were both in the same team. So what we identified as a very big problem in between the Google challenge was there's something called a sales engineer in between. like supplying the information. So the one thing that we encountered, like the biggest problem, was that there is a lot of irrelevant information that's going to the sales team, which they actually do not need. So, and the sales engineer is getting burdened by distributing all this information between the sales staff. So, essentially, reducing the burden over the sales engineer and providing relevant and tailored information to the sales team. That's what we thought about. Yeah.
And we also try to focus more on the side of like currently sales engineers provide purely just product information, and it's almost like a manifesto, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're basically translating what the engineering team is doing, which are generally pretty disconnected from the rest of the sales force, and then formatting it in a way that it's like a dictionary that you can look up for product information. That's very efficient. That's what we identify as a problem. So we decided to tailor it to be you get the information as you need it and as it's relevant to your client particularly. And how can we make sure that the information received by a salesperson is relevant to the work that they're doing currently? Uh, but that was what we
Yeah.
identified, and we can walk into the solution later. But I think it's more interesting to look at what we identified as the main problems before we start
Yes.
talking about what we thought
What
the
about
solution.
you guys, Achilles and Neoor? What do you think was the biggest problem that you encountered while thinking about the problem solution, like everything in the challenge sprint?
Initially, we had a lot of ideas, but we landed on Google Ads. We had a good look at the product, and we realized that it's something that can be very advanced, but a lot of its end users, SMBs specifically, small and medium businesses, had a lot of trouble navigating through it. And we thought that if we streamlined the interface, then that could make it a lot easier for salespeople to handle their advertising and also kind of get rid of the middleman that is third-party agencies, which increases profit for both the salespeople, the sales teams at Google, and also the small and medium businesses. And so we came up with a multifaceted solution, which kind of helps the average SMB Google Ads customer get to the nitty gritty of the interface and make better use of ads.
Okay, yeah, that sounds cool.
Okay.
Actually, we were thinking more on the salespeople side because we were thinking of like the big enterprise businesses. So usually the teams aren't too big, but sometimes they'll have teams of like 10 people, potentially. And so it being a global organization, they're gonna have people each team, or like even between teams, there's gonna be people who live in different spaces, and people aren't going to be able to make it to every meeting. And on top of that, like the organization system for all the files and all the data is kind of like hard to search through. So we were thinking of a AI assistant that spans over like essentially their entire platform. Because they're already developing Gemini, we thought we might as well use something that they're already trying to push more. And using that, we were thinking of finding ways to make asynchronous things more accessible. So that's through meeting transcripts. That's through making data like kind of time sensitive data. So it's like, okay, so this is relevant right now, so we'll put this at the front of their page instead of just like somewhere in the files that they have to find later.
I think
I think that was very
I think
similar to what we were doing as well.
Yeah.
I would like to ask actually, what do you guys like? We were given the timeline that we should be focusing a lot on the problem, at least by our directors, because problem identification was like promoted to us as the most important like section of the hackathon, which I do agree with. How did you guys like find the actual like time management of like the entire 2.5 week sprint?
A lot of trial and error. Initially, we went into the challenge without a clear understanding of how exactly we should structure our research. And so in the first 4 or 5 days, we were just trying to identify a problem and understand the prompt fully. And so we came up with a lot of ideas, a lot of possible interpretations of what the problem actually is. A lot of rejection from our director, of course. But in the end, we did come up with a solution, and the time management, it just we just came up with it at a later point in time, and it worked out eventually.
that's
Why
cool.
was
I
your
think for
director
us it was
rejecting
like
some things?
Yeah, why do
Because
you think Arctic rejected a lot of your like problem identification stuff?
because we asked for feedback constantly. That is what we wanted. We wanted Atik to give us feedback on our solutions and our ideas, and rejection is the path to success eventually. And it did lead us to success. That's what I like to think. And so, yeah, if you ask for a lot of feedback, you will get a lot of rejection, and that is eventually what leads you to a successful solution.
To be honest, I agree with that because I think the main key of the challenge was like getting feedback constantly, like getting in touch with the director and getting constant feedback, because that's how you're going to improve. That's how you're going to identify what mistakes that you make, and that's how you're going to come up with a better problem statement or a better solution for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I
exactly.
totally agree. I think that's one of the few mistakes that we did make in our group. I think we took a little bit too long to ask for feedback with Authentic. And I
Yeah.
think we were a little bit sparse in our like context for it as well, because it just isn't enough to just ask for feedback. It's about providing the context as that the feedback that he does give you is relevant to what you think that you need to improve on.
Yeah, like don't just
So I
give
think that's
him
something.
in general for feedback. Don't just like give them and say, "Oh yeah, give me whatever you think."
Yeah, and
Like it's
that
best
was
to ask
a
for
Yeah,
specific
yeah,
feedback.
exactly.
for a very specific feedback. What they teach you in TKS is that you need to ask for very specific feedback so that you can get very specific answers for your questions.
Yeah,
And
I think that's
yeah,
really important.
so mhm. So those of you who don't know, Neoor is actually in the in-person program in Calgary, I guess, right?
Hmm.
So how was the fall sprint experience for you?
Yeah.
Like, was
So
it different from the global
I'll tell you
challenge,
one
like the
thing
global
with in
thing?
person right now is that
Uh-huh.
it's probably similar to online, but like the problem is that we can only work with people who are in person with us, so we couldn't expand and like talk to other people as much as I wanted to. So I ended up finding like people that I thought I could trust, and yeah, I ended up finding people I thought I could trust, and we did well towards the end. But I think that for us, up until like the we got one in person session to work on it together, so during that session, we got some good work done, I think. But after that, we almost did nothing because I think the mindset that the in person holds is that all the value of TKS comes from within the in person. Like a lot of people hold it. I try not to hold it, and yeah, we ended up doing much until like literally last minute. So we started doing everything on the Sunday before, not even like on the Monday and Tuesday, and we had the problem done and the solution done, which is good, but we underestimated how much research we'd need to actually like go towards the impact. So I think towards the end our team was very unified, but towards the beginning our organization wasn't actually that amazing.
Okay, so I guess like
So it's
there
not even an
were.
in-person thing. I think it's just like the team dynamic a little bit, and also
Mhm.
like a little bit of the project manager's fault, in my opinion. But yeah,
Okay, project managers for okay.
a little bit
Yeah.
because it's the project manager who's supposed to keep everyone accountable. So if he's not doing the right job, and if he saying he has the most time doesn't do the work that he said he's going to do, then it's kind of like a downward to the rest of the team because they're supposed to set an example.
Yeah. So and also in this podcast we have a project manager right here. We have Yash Ladi Ladi. He's the project manager of our team. So Yash, how was your experience being the project manager?
I think it was a team of necessity for me to be the project manager because I didn't really trust Arnav or my other teammate to be the project manager. So I had to
You wouldn't
step
trust
up and
Batman? Come on, man.
Yeah, you were
I would
interested,
be.
Batman.
There's a reason why Robin is in charge of all the logistics, you know. But
That's
it's
true.
um so I personally I thought it was my responsibility to make the team run smoothly. And as a project manager, I think I did do a couple things right, which was just being like like a positive figure, making sure people like were at least motivated to do work. But as a project manager, I think it's really important to have that sort of ability to assert yourself as high standards. And that doesn't align with my personality very well. So I had to really learn how to develop that while still like keeping in line with how I want to act as a person. Keeping high standards doesn't mean you have to be like a dick. It doesn't mean you have to be an asshole. It can be as much as just being able to have that respect within your team, such that other people know that that the work that they're doing is important for you as well. I think that was my key takeaway as a product manager. I don't know if I'll do it again, but it was definitely a humbling experience, I'll
Oh
say.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
Definitely. Yeah, so those are like quite the experience you guys shared. Could you like can you guys do you guys had any standout movements or like any significant milestones during the challenge? Like any memorable experiences, like any turning points during the challenge that you want to share?
I think that one
I
thing
think
is
the
that
last day, I'm sorry, Neoor, you continue. I
Okay,
spoke a
actually,
lot
I'll
already.
expand on the last day part, and then you can go into it. The last day, everyone was like, the time was ticking. Everyone, literally everyone got on call. It was not planned or anything, like because I think most teams were like inadvertently had the goal of like finishing by the day before. They wanted to finish everything by Tuesday and just chill on Wednesday. But that all for most teams, that almost was not the case. They literally all went to the last minute. Some people even handed it in late, despite knowing the deadline. So
Yeah, that's something I want to talk about. So we were almost ready to deliver on time, but we ended up being late for the video. Prob, one of my team members, started recording around 11:30 p.m. EST, and he got the final recording done at 11:58, 30 and 30 seconds. And that meant that Ben couldn't submit the form on time, our project manager. And so we were late we should have been late by about 30 seconds, but Atik and Shay didn't respond. So technically we were 20 minutes late. And we are afraid that this might affect our performance. We were told that our deck is going to be judged, but there's going to be a flag and the Google execs are going to know it. But it was 2.5 weeks of very hard work, and we really hope that that is not going to have a big effect on performance. That was a big turning point for me and my confidence.
That's Achilles' confidence right there.
Yes.
For us, it's also the same. I was recording our thing at 5 a.m. in the morning, and
Yeah, so what
that's the
happened
biggest
was,
mistake I possibly
yeah.
could make.
So what
did
happened
you
was
end it in
like
late or
me
on time?
no.
On
So what
time, on
happened
time.
was on
Yeah.
the last day, me, Yash, and like Odraja, other teammate, all of us were working on like the presentation, like completing it. And then it was almost like 3:30 a.m. India time IST, and Odraja passed out because like she was like, obviously everybody was very tired. And then me and Yash, both of us were like up till like 5:30 a.m. each of our time. So I slept at like 5 a.m. my time, and then I was like, Yash, you need to do the video, dude. I can't. And then I think that was a very memorable, like I think that's a very good thing that Yash did. Like as a project manager, he took the responsibility of submitting the video by himself. So shout out to Yash for that. Yeah.
I thought the video was supposed to be only one person.
No,
Yeah,
but
it was meant to
like
be one person, but I
no, but
I
like he
did
took the
everything myself. I
initiative
set
when
up the
like
script.
everybody was basically down at like 5:30 a.m. their time. Yash took the initiative to do it himself. So that was
Oh,
dope.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still recovering from my sleep from that day, by the way. Like it's not
It's
Everybody
okay.
going
is.
well.
I'm sleep deprived completely. I'm
So
like, I average 5 hours sleep a night. So
yeah, that's
Oh,
it. It
good for
was
you.
Yeah, the challenge for me and my sleep schedule was really bad because everybody was in North America, either in Canada or the US, and
yeah.
I had to go with their schedule because it was it was three people against one. So
Mhm.
our syncs would start at midnight and we would finish at 1:30, 2 a.m. And so for the past 2.5 weeks, I haven't gotten more than 4.5 hours of sleep.
I've been meaning to ask actually, like, why did you choose your team that was like on the other side of the world?
Yeah, exactly. I think
Because
you
we
could have
are
done some kind of strategic planning in that because my
we
team is like, yeah, pretty close time zones.
we work very well together and we always produce great results, and we're most of us were part of the Fire Scout team, the team that won the
Hackathon.
first TKS hackathon. And
Uh-huh.
we thought that we're gonna go as well as we did last time, and we think that our presentation this time is in fact even better than last time. And so we were confident that with this team of this professional composure, we were going to make it, and we did eventually.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Yeah, sure.
Arnav,
Definitely. That was
do you feel left
uh-huh.
out?
At
Arnav?
the
Is that
time of recording.
Nah, I think it was okay, to be honest, that was necessary because I think in the hackathon team, although I agree all of us work like very well together, but I couldn't give you guys like I didn't contribute much. I'll agree on that. So yeah,
Yes.
it was a good move of changing kind of team a bit.
It's fine,
So
Achilles. Next time, like, I'll replace Arnav because I'm the better round guy.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, same, bro.
Um,
I'm willing to stay up for you guys.
Okay. So enough about like all these things, like the successes and all. But like, what do you think that the main challenges you encountered when like doing the TKS challenge? And like, how did you guys think? How did you overcome them? And what lessons did you learn from them? The major challenges that you faced.
Just overcoming the first step of creating the solution. That was the most difficult thing in the entire challenge, at least for my team. It was very difficult simply because the prompt was so open-ended, and we ended up with this solution that we really didn't expect to land on at the start of the challenge. But after we started that, after we finished that, rather, everything else became much easier. And so, yeah, I think the first step, which happens very often with these kinds of, was the most difficult one.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. What about you, Neoor?
Honestly, for me, I think it was like getting everyone to work. Like I wasn't PM, but I was like the one almost directing everyone to work because almost no one did anything. Like I would have worked on said like part that I'm working on, and then I go to just take a break, and I see that my friend's been playing for so and so time, and they haven't been doing any work, and it's not it's not no negative shade to them, but like for people who said they would take more prior, like because we at the beginning had to choose what priority would give this challenge, and I didn't put it as high as everyone else. Like I put it, I think, third highest out of everyone else, which is second last technically. But I was putting in the most work, or like it seemed that I had the highest priority on it. So I think getting everyone to actually work on it was kind of a challenge, even though I wasn't PM, right? So I think, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
think,
And
wait,
talking about
I have a question
yeah.
just for Achilles
Yeah.
before Arnav goes.
Go
I
ahead.
was thinking about like what did you mean by like that first step in terms like you didn't land on the solution that you thought you would, but you ended up like doing it. So what was your like process at least when you were like for the first step?
Again, as I said before, trial and error, just coming up with multiple solutions, multiple interpretations of the prompt, asking around, joining all the Q&As, listening to other people's questions, and that is how we got to the solution.
The
Like, does
Q&As
that
were really useful, I think. They gave us a lot of like direction there. But
absolutely? Yeah,
Bilal was amazing. He was such a
yeah,
guy, nice guy.
Yeah,
the
Did you guys reach out
shout
to
out to
any?
Bilal
yeah.
for being
Yeah.
It
super
was
amazing.
difficult for us. It has come up with a clear solution. Without that Q&A, I don't think we'd be here.
Yeah.
I guess Achilles got a bit cut off there. I guess.
Yeah, I said
Um,
that the Bilal Q&A was very important for us. We think that without it, we probably wouldn't be where we are today.
Same.
okay, that's nice.
Really pivotal for us. Guided us a lot. Even though, just for future people who are doing this in the future, we don't know what companies you're going to be working with, but keep in mind that you shouldn't take what they're saying as gospel, because with these, a lot of the time they'll present you with such a broad problem statement, and then the person who's presenting it to you, particularly, might only see that problem statement in one way. Which, if you're focusing on that one way, is great. You should use it as a resource. But if you're not focusing on one way, you should still try to be a little bit more open and talk to other employees and other ideas, because it might be a little bit more hidden beneath the surface than you think. And like a lot of people, at least what our directors were saying, is that when they were asked for a justification of any of their like logics behind their solution or even their problem, they just went because Bilal said so. And that's not really a to a Google executive, that's really like it's like playing Chinese Whisper almost, right? You're having
Yeah.
somebody else do the actual like identification for you, which is very silly. Just try to be a little bit more critical if you're thinking. I think that's really important with this challenge.
Yeah,
Being able to
as
be
well as
critical.
like find sources that aren't just like from people, right? Because then it'll just feel like, oh, you're just listening to what everyone else is. You have to be able to show that you can figure out actual relevant data, actual real data.
Yeah, but on that point, actually, I would also just say try to avoid using statistics that are too broad and are not specific enough. So use statistics as they're needed, and then use people statements for as they're needed, right? Because statistics can't explain everything within a problem. It can explain a lot of things, but it can't really explain the actual like responsiveness of your solution, for example, or like how the problem is perceived within the internal organization of the company.
Mhm.
So just be a little bit more careful around that, because I think people see statistics as this objective truth, and while they are objective, we need to see that objective truth to the lens that that truth was measured through. If that makes sense. I cut you off. What did you
No,
think was your like
it was
biggest?
also no. This was going to be a segment for the podcast, which was going to be for the
Mhm.
future innovates for their like talent sprint. Advice from all the alumni who like going to be alumni, from TKS, that how should you approach to a problem statement that's super complex, which Yash just elaborated on. So that was pretty good. One thing that I want to talk to about you guys was the solution part. I think a lot of teams use the buzzword AI while coming up with the solution. So what do you guys think? Like, did you guys put AI in your solution? In what way? Because in the start, every other innovate was like AI chatbot. AI chatbot was the most like the worst thing that you could do for a solution. So what do you guys think on this?
I
No,
think
okay, before I start that, not the worst thing as long as you have a justification for it and have like a logical reasoning behind it,
Mhm.
right?
And as
Yeah.
long as you're
AI
actually
chatbot is
unique.
completely valid. Yeah, yeah, no, AI chatbot, everybody had the idea for it, but if somebody executed that really well with the exact parameters of the chatbot, maybe it's like a social media content, like it would be that's really innovative, and it's about how can you solve the problem effectively, and sometimes the most effective solution is really obvious.
Mhm.
So saying that just avoid all like obvious solutions is kind of bad practice.
Yeah, I think I agree
But
with
can
you
you
with this
continue,
bad
Neoor?
practice. But
AI
honestly,
itself is not bad.
yeah,
It is a very useful solution. You just need
Yeah,
to use it for a reason, as Yash said, not just because AI is happening and because, oh, Google introduced Gemini. No, it's not just because of that. Google has already come up with Gemini. You don't just need to go and have them tell them, oh, you can use this tool. They know they can use it. If you have creative ideas, then use it. If not, then you can go ahead with something else. We're talking about the internet is a 30-year-old tool. There are so many things you can use created in the internet that are not AI. However, if you have an innovative idea, as Yash said, with the AI chatbot thing, yes, and actually that is kind of a part of our solution. We do have an innovative chatbot that we've integrated into Google Ads. But yeah, just very important not to use the AI jargon just because it exists.
yeah,
yeah, a lot of
just because it
businesses,
exists.
yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of businesses, not even
Sorry, continue,
Google.
Neoor.
A lot of businesses, not even Google, they literally just use AI just because, like, oh, it's a buzz, it's like the buzz. But like most AI companies who are actually like using it effectively, they find the problem that they have, and then they look for a solution. And if AI fits that solution, then they use it. But otherwise, they try to stay away from it. And
Yeah,
we
exactly.
kind of had that mindset, or at least I personally was trying to have that mindset, because what we were planning to do as a team was find a couple different solutions and then, like, discuss on what we thought was the best. I was trying to find solutions that didn't involve AI, and it was pretty difficult because a lot of them they're not hard to implement, but they don't actually have that. It doesn't feel like they would actually be effective. So I think what many teams did end up using AI. It's just, as Achilles said, like, you have to find a way to actually use it well, and find a way to not just say use AI, find a way to give an actual solution with it.
Yeah, not no,
Well, I
don't
think
find a way to use AI. Find a way to implement AI into your creative
Exactly.
ideas.
Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
it's when you're really working on like anything like this, it's really you shouldn't try to fit the solution to the problem, right? You should always fit the problem to the solution. And a lot of the time, problems have multiple facets to them and how you can solve them. So I think it's really important to come into it with an open mind. An exercise that I did, at least personally, like I didn't expect my teammates to do this, but what I did is I came up with 30 ideas and I just made the like within 30 minutes, one idea a minute, and they can be as like pointless as possible, right? And then based on that, I like they're completely pointless. It can be like imaginary, even. Like I had one of them was like aliens, right? Like completely imaginary. As long it's like a building block, so I can understand the base of what the problem is and the base of the solutions, such that I could finally like kind of like build that pyramid up to the final like most perfected solution. Because I think it's important to have like that open mindedness when you're trying to build these problems
Yeah, the
and
brainstorm
solutions.
stage.
And I think yeah, in the end, I think my one of my solutions did get chosen within our team. Um, how effective that was, I don't know, but it's I think the alien part actually did come into context there, but not like in the way that you would
Yeah,
expect it
yeah.
to.
When you say like problem identification, I think there are a lot of methods to like identify the problem. For our team, what we did was we basically came up, we divided this like the whole statement in two parts, and then we came up with random problem statements. And what we did was we took Yash's wall and we just put like two axes on it. And according to, for an example, it was one was uniqueness and one was the impact one,
Not
I guess.
uniqueness. It wasn't uniqueness. It was one of them was feasibility, and then the
Feasibility.
feasibility slash one of I forgot another word. Feasibility basically, and then the other one is effectiveness. So how effectiveness is to the overall problem statement that Google is giving.
Yeah, exactly. And
Uh,
that was a very unique way
I
of identifying the
yeah.
problem, like by plotting our ideas on those in on the graph. So I think that was a pretty unique way of identifying the problem. Did you guys like do any kind of things like that, like any unique ways to identify the problem? Achilles and
I
Neoor?
think unique less, but more like how what did you guys do? Because I don't think
Yeah,
uniqueness should be a
yeah.
Yeah.
factor
Like,
for
what
any
did
sort of
you
decision
guys
making.
do to identify your problem?
I think what
Uh,
we did is like one mindset we learned during one of the sessions was nth level thinking. We literally just made a giant web map of like we started from the problem statement, but we broke it down into like, okay, so what does this mean? Why does this happen? And how does this affect revenue? And how does this affect like salesmen? And we like just kept breaking it down. Like, okay, this is how it affects it. So why is that? And then does it affect anyone else? And so on. And we broke it down through like kind of a giant mind map, and from there we were able to, I guess, understand what we wanted to tackle more, but also what would have the best impact, or what solution would have the biggest impact on all of those facets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I
how effective do you
think,
think that was?
yep.
How
Same question.
effective? I think it was pretty good because, but one thing is like we towards the end we kind of, I think, lost unison. Like we didn't communicate, like we got the solution, right, but we all assumed we all knew what the solution exactly was. But I feel like
Hmm.
I think our slideshow was still coherent, but I don't think everyone had a clear idea of what our one solution was. It felt like we were tackling like more than one issue towards the end. I think it turned out okay, but I think maybe having some more meetings of like actually discussing like what the solution is, like all the facets of it, because it felt like we all had like a different idea almost of what the solution was for us.
I think I had a very similar experience as a project manager, especially because towards the end we started being a little bit flaky, at least within my teammates. So like it was kind of hard to get everybody on the same page because, um, like even the way I think Arnav explained it in a lot of his slides, I thought was a bit outside of what I my vision was, in terms of the solution. And I think keeping that like having everybody on the same page is one of the most important things possible when you're making the deck, especially
Hmm.
because everything needs to be going towards that singular end goal, which is trying to pitch a solution. Um,
Yeah.
Achilles, what did you do? And what was your reflection on that?
What did we do to come up with our solution? Is that what you're asking?
Like,
Yeah.
what kind of what framework did you use? Let's say to
Yeah.
brainstorm and ideate.
Uh, Basically, what we did is we just based our initial research on what the first Q&As were with, I believe the first one was Mark Schnabel. We used that to get the basic information about how Google's salespeople and sales departments work internally. What methods of communication do they use? On what basis are they updated about new products? Things like that. And that is what we used to come up with our initial solutions, which were not good, but they were what led us to our final proposal. The most important thing I think for us and our success was the fact that we recorded everything. Anything that we came up with went into this giant Notion doc that we have. It's dozens upon dozens of pages. Every
Mhm.
single idea that we had for the challenge is in there. And so anything insignificant, anything that we considered insignificant could, it could have been something very valuable in the future. I don't know, maybe a
Yeah.
few days later. And a lot of it turned out to be very, very useful indeed. Little snippets from the Q&As actually turned out to be very pivotal for our solutions. And, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And, the person who took the notes, maybe they didn't consider it to be something very important, and yet they took it down, and another person on the team found it, and it might have been, very, very important for us and our solution.
I think I
That's really
definitely
interesting.
agree
I'm
on
copying
making
that.
like a.
You're
I think
copying that?
yeah,
Yeah, next
I
time. Yeah.
think one thing that I agree with Achilles is making like a Notion doc. Like this would be a tip for all the future innovates or like anyone who's going into teamwork. When you're making a team, you should definitely make kind of a Notion doc or at least a Google Doc, which we did, and maybe divide the sections by each teammate, what we did, and
Mhm.
then under like each member's name, they can put on their work, and then you can create like community. For an example, you could create community questions or community notes, so that like everything is being recorded in a very organized way, so that in
Mhm.
future you can look into it and maybe like that would lead into like deep research, and
Yeah,
eventually you could come up with something better. Yeah.
I think using Notion like powerfully is so good because Notion, like while you can take notes as well, like if my team was well versed in Notion, which they weren't, it's almost their first time using it, but I'm well versed in it. And if we were able to use it for like scheduling, for literally like posting everything, it could be so effective because it's such a powerful organizational tool. So like I've used it before TKS, and like it shows off like in the way I organize things, I think. And if you're able to schedule stuff as well with Notion, like it would be so powerful because it just keeps everything so organized for everyone, along with the
PS.
notes.
Notion is
uh
just a gold mine, and there's so many tools that people don't know about. Just
Mhm.
when you're creating a text box, just click the plus icon, scroll down, and you can't stop scrolling down. There's so many.
Exactly. They've also added like
I've
a
used
Notion
Notion
AI
so much.
assistant recently, so there you have they have a lot.
Mhm. I
PS,
think it's
this
paid though. That's the
podcast
reason why
is
we didn't
not
use it.
sponsored by
No,
Notion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
unsponsored review of
Did
Notion.
you,
Unsponsored review, honest review.
Achilles?
Yeah.
Did, Achilles, did you pay for Notion? Because when we tried to use it, it wasn't working for us because didn't have the paid version.
No, I use the
Oh
free
well, okay,
version.
sorry. I think Notion AI is paid now, but a while ago it was free because I was like a beta
Oh
tester.
yeah.
But yeah, but
Mhm.
no, the workspace is free for Notion.
No, it works for
Yeah, the
me.
workspace for privately, but I was wondering for collaborative workspaces it was paid. It's fine. It's not
No,
really a
if
relevant
we were able to
conversation.
we had a free one. I think you get one free collaborative workspace.
Yeah, AI
Oh
works for
really?
me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
It's because you have
because
a limited amount of AI. You have like 100 AI so you can use, and then you're done.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
something like that.
let's not turn this into a full scale review of
Yeah.
Notion.
yeah,
Then
definitely
I think that's
not.
a bit off topic. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Notion, if you
Uh,
sponsor the podcast, we're gonna do a detailed review of it. Yeah. So moving on.
or
I think
better. Next TKS hackathon idea. You guys can come to
yeah,
us.
Oh yeah.
yes, definitely. Looking forward to that. I think more than discussing like the challenge and the problem statement and solution, the most important part of the sprint was reflecting on yourself and reflecting on the journey. So, what were like your personal or like professional growth that you experience? Like any key takeaways or skills that you want to like share with each other? Like the major takeaways you had with the sprint challenge, because that eventually that's the most important thing after this challenge.
I think a very useful thing is to use AI intelligently. So not just like, oh, come up with 20 ideas for this challenge sprint. Prompt engineering is something very, very valuable. And if you use it in a fair way, a way that doesn't, doesn't invoke plagiarism, or, if you shouldn't ask ChatGPT or Bard or Bing Chat or whatever you use to create ideas for you. If you just ask AI for some, I don't know, detailed information, an AI that, of course, can give you its sources, it can speed up the research process for you very, very fast. But you do need to make sure that the sources that let's say Google Bard or Perplexity is using are accurate. But that will cut hours of work away from your workflow.
I wanted to add to that. How would you work on prompt engineering? Like just like a quick. How would you learn it?
How do you learn it? I think just experience with AI and actual prompting, and not just like write me a 200-word essay about
You
technology.
know what? I think
Make it as
uh
specific as
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I think that TKS, like not directly but indirectly, also helps us in turn like helps us using AI intelligently, because when you're in TKS, you're used to asking very specific questions. So that's what need an AI. For an example, as Achilles mentioned, you're not supposed to write something like "Give me a 200-word English essay" or something. You need to be very specific of your wants, and that's something that TKS also teaches you.
Yeah. Specific feedback is like also a really big thing as well. We were talking about this earlier. I think specificity within your questions is really important. For me, I think the most like valuable skill I kind of gained out of all this is um I think that storyboarding is so powerful. Like genuinely,
Yeah,
I really understood the power of storyboarding this like whole sprint. Um because like I was doing it in like a beta way almost, um, just like out of my own like natural way of the way I like to organize myself.
Hmm.
But the moment I started being intentional with it, like I got really carried away. Like my storyboard that we made for the presentation, I did like 25 redrafts of that. Not 25. I think
yeah,
like
Yeah, I think it's
you
like
get the
storyboarding is like seen as just, storyboarding. You're just making a plan. But I think it almost like is the groundwork for everything you do. For like once you make the storyboard, because it allows you to like it almost makes a vision for the end, a result. Almost, not
yeah.
exactly, but
Also, the way that we information presentation is a really big way that humans even perceive information in the first place.
hmm,
The way I say something to you is changes a lot of the way that it's received. So
yeah.
having that, at least for me, like I initially did the storyboard just as like a list of stuff I want to like have down,
Hmm.
and then I further refined it down to like exactly what each section will have information on, such that it builds towards the overall. I don't like the word narrative, but the overall like vision of the whole presentation.
Yeah, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you're trying to sell something to them. You want if informing somebody, you're informing them for a purpose. And I think storyboarding is probably the most powerful tool because it allows you to build all your research around that purpose very well. And
hmm
I think if I started my storyboarding like 3 days earlier, we would have been so comfortable because a lot of our useless information would have been gone.
yeah. One thing I want to add about Yash is that you don't want him to write on your storyboard because Yash's handwriting is barely readable. Speaking from
Okay,
experience.
well, listen, no need
Yeah,
to diss people here.
Yeah,
yeah, we can.
that's
Yeah.
harsh. That's harsh.
Okay, yeah, dude, you literally like, yeah, we can't understand your writing. Sorry. Yeah. So I think, okay,
Bad
and
handwriting of a
yes,
genius.
All geniuses have bad handwriting. Trust.
Yeah, trust,
okay, yeah,
trust.
yeah,
No, bad
geniuses.
handwriting.
Okay, let's assume that some geniuses have bad handwriting, but Yash is autistic, so
Hey,
Okay,
hey,
listen.
hey,
All
hey,
right.
hey.
Hey, we don't talk about that here.
okay,
Yeah,
yes,
that's a bit too close to home, bro.
yeah, Yash, yeah, yeah, I'm gonna get cancelled for this shit. Okay, moving on.
Moving on swiftly.
uh, what?
Moving on swiftly.
Neoor, we
Yeah.
didn't nobody I know everybody answered. Neoor, can you what was the most like
Oh
important skill
yeah,
that you gained?
Near. What was your key takeaway or like a skill that you gained through this 2.5 week sprint? The biggest
Honestly, I think
one.
I realized how big of an importance like being connected to the team is. So like I was talking, or not talking, but like seeing other groups and like what they were made of, like they didn't feel as connected to each other, and I feel like they still got work done for sure, but it didn't feel as fun throughout the whole way. And that almost made their deck also. Well, I didn't see any of their decks, but that just made their energy just more like dead almost, or just like not as apparent. And I think that might have been the downfall of some, but not many. But I just think that that's one of the key takeaways. I want to make a point to make the entire team more connected every time I am in a leadership position.
Yeah, I definitely agree to that because I think when you're working with a team, I think being in sync with each other while doing the work, that's the most important factor. Because if you're not in sync with each other, like even if you're doing the work, in the end, it's not gonna turn out as you get like it's not gonna turn out up to the expectations. It's
Mhm.
very important that the team should be completely in sync while working, and that's something that I experienced both in like the sprint and in the hackathon we were like very much in sync. Yeah, so yeah, that's a very big key
Also,
takeaway from
procrastination
this.
was a big issue for us, I think, or like at least for most
Oh
people.
yeah.
So I just threw that in. That's like one of the big takeaways. Don't procrastinate because
Don't procrastinate. Okay,
yeah.
yeah, this would be good for the next segment, which is why, like, okay, for someone who might be listening to this podcast, who might be considering doing similar challenges, or like maybe future innovates listening to this, like they want to do their sprint challenge. So what are the advices or tips that you offer to maximize their experience? So recommendation for future participants, or any person who's listening to this podcast doing similar
I
challenges. Yeah.
think for me, I think setting expectations is very important with yourself and also with others. Um, and I don't think that being unrealistic with your expectations is a very positive way to start with this, right? So,
Hmm.
for example, I think the biggest mistake me and Arnav did as a team is that when we came into this, we said that losing is not an option for us. And I think that's a very unhealthy
Yeah,
mindset to go at this with.
Yeah, for sure.
Because
definitely.
it's not always about winning. I mean, obviously, like winning would be an amazing side byproduct if you're watching this Google. But I think that it's really important to set like a positive expectation within yourself. Like for me, right, the expectation is that I don't want my teammates to like feel that I didn't do a good enough job as a PM. Right, that was
Mhm.
my expectation I set for myself into this, and I did okay in that expectation to that and met that to a
I mean,
reasonable
Arnav,
extent.
did he do
That really
okay?
motivated me.
What
I did
did he
okay.
do? Okay.
I did.
Did I do okay?
Did
I
no? Did he?
mean,
Yash do okay as a PM? Since he's on that note.
okay, okay. Are we supposed to criticize Yash because I'm all in for that? But yeah, okay. Okay, no cap. I think Yash was a very good PM, but I would say he was like a co-PM because me and Yash both were like dividing tasks at many times. Okay, so I would say in the start when the challenge just got started, I was feeling more like the PM. But when like 3 or like 5 days before the challenge was gonna end, Yash really took the command, and he acted like a very very good PM. So yeah, that was definitely one thing. Because
So, did you guys not have a PM to start with, like or like a
no,
direct?
we did, but
Okay.
like yeah, it's just Yash was not in the PM mode in the start, but in the end he was, and he was a
Okay.
very good
I
PM.
started
Yeah.
asserting myself a bit more. I started like understanding what it meant to be a PM. But I
Okay.
think it was very important for me to set that expectations internally, instead of just
Mm-hmm.
being out, just going, I'm gonna win, because that is not really a like that isn't a guiding of any sort of way. Because
Exactly.
winning
Yeah.
can mean a lot of
Yeah.
very different things. Apart, like you don't know what winning will be like. I think it's very like, it's really easy to get misguided by having that expectation within yourself. I think that you should have that, but I think you should also have a secondary expectation that it's a bit more direct. So
Hmm.
everything that you're doing is intentional, right? I think that's what I would say.
My advice would
Uh,
be to start as early as possible. Don't waste any time talking about how your team's going to do, what you're expecting. Yes, it's good to set expectations, but don't spend too much time on that.
Hmm.
As the
yeah,
Nike slogan says, just do it. There's no
Just
word.
do
reason
it.
to sit around or to just think, how are we going to structure this? Get started and look for feedback later. Uh, it's a mistake that we made. Initially, we said that, we're a great team. We've got a great team dynamic. We are the team dynamic. It was all a very, we started in a very
Honestly, it
narcissistic.
felt. If you think like reflecting back on it, it's kind of corny. We're just like, oh yeah, we're gonna win for
Yeah.
sure. Like
Yeah,
that's not
yeah,
like a
yeah.
Yeah.
funny.
We were overconfident. We just knew that we were going to win.
Hmm.
And we just felt like we didn't need to start immediately. We can start a bit later. Give it a couple days, think about things. No, get started immediately. That is going to make your solution a lot of times better. I can
A lot
guarantee.
of times better. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
definitely. I think consistency is the key.
Yep.
The like because like if you're putting, like, for an example, you would work on this challenge for like 2 hours a day. That's perfect. But for an example, some team would do like 8 hours on the last day. Like their like challenge, their presentation, it's gonna be trash. Instead, you're supposed to be consistent with your things. That's a very big key takeaway from my side. And yeah, one more big key takeaway was picking your teammates. That's a very, yeah, you should be very thoughtful while picking your teammates. Yeah, very thoughtful while picking your teammates. I'm not gonna say anything else. Just be thoughtful, kids. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I totally agree with like the consistency. Baby steps here really do build to giant strides. Because especially because it's so logical. I think having that like a small bit of logic every single day can help build a. It's a you're gonna if you do everything in one go, you're not gonna have that like it's not gonna have that stability.
I
Because
think
if
on
you do a
the
small step, you can like check yourself every day.
on that, exactly. You check yourself every day. It's like every time instead of having to like you're first off put on a crutch because you want to do things fast, but second off you don't get time to sleep on the idea. And I think people like underestimate the fact that if you sleep on an idea you'll be much more likely to either find a better solution or like just have a change that you want to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that was it for the first podcast ever. Like, I think that this is like, for all of us, this might be the first podcast, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
first time ever doing any
Yeah,
sort of
it's the first
content.
time. Yeah,
Really?
quite,
First time?
yeah, everyone's first time. I think so, right?
I mean, I have had some with my
That's
friends.
crazy.
So yeah.
Okay, that's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, wrapping things up with this incredible discussion today. It's been an absolute blast into the TKS challenge. We had a very good discussion with our amazing innovates, reflecting on a conversation. Do you have anything else, like just like 2 or 3 words you want to say to our viewers right now?
Arnav is not Batman.
Okay,
That
no.
agree.
Okay. My final words for this podcast is that I am Batman. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay.
Okay.
Well, you're not. We have two people here that can disagree with you.
Yeah. Okay, guys. See ya. This was it for today. We'll be catching up for the next episode, which would be with the meta. You would see different people, different innovate students. This time we had Yash. Yash is absolutely that guy. He's gonna be my co-host for the meta challenge. So yeah, that's it. That's it for today. Bye. See ya.